I think the biggest gift a human being can give themselves is closing the gap between our self-concept and our lived reality. To come back to that, I feel like I can't go further without even answering, or not answering that, but giving my opinion on that. I think that is where peace is found consistently. Is like, can I close what I believe about myself with the life that I'm living? And that is the biggest cornerstone of work.
Hey guys, welcome back to Something More Human, the show where we talk about human connection in the digital age. I'm Sam.
I'm Elliot.
And I'm Ryan.
So Ryan, on this show, of course, in the description, there will be all of the places that people can connect with you. And if you're listening, you can go to those places and learn about Ryan. But we don't really care so much about what you do, and that's easy to find. We care most about who you are. So help us understand a little bit of who you are.
I'm somebody that you'll either catch in a single colored sweatsuit with my shirt off or helping coach people on their identity. I would say in a nutshell, that's who I am. I mean, there's been a lot to get to this point. I've been a victim to my circumstances. I've had challenges that I've overcome, and both have been true in the same year. But to get to the place where I can be a crayon on the camera and laugh and also talk about trauma has been a lot of who I've become.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about like some of these big markers in shaping who you are and milestones of what creates you, unique Ryan Fila.
Yeah. I have traveled to war zones. I've built homes in Haiti. My dad killed himself when I was 20. My mom was addicted to meth. Like, there are a lot of these intense moments throughout my story that have helped catapult me into the crayon.
Well, it's such a seemingly taboo topic that I don't feel like I hear enough about on the internet. But I've never known someone that has had a father who's taken their own life. And you were how old when that happened?
20.
You were 20. I guess I meant to ask how old your father was.
He was 27 years. So he was 47.
Did you have a pretty good relationship with him before?
He was my best friend growing up. Like, I was a daddy's boy. And then through my teens, it transitioned for sure. And then actually the last conversation we had was via text. And he texted me and said, hey, like, I'm sorry for, what had happened. And he was an alcoholic. So there was a lot of cyclical nature in our relationships. And if anybody's had that relationship, they probably received messages like this where there's an apology and, it comes and it goes and it's fleeting. So this wasn't the first time that I had received something like that. And he said, I want you to like me again. And I was like, I love you, Dad. Like I said, I remember sending him that text back. And he said, yeah, I know you love me, but I want you to like me again. And I never responded. And that was the last interaction we had.
I know I'm prodding, but you and I have talked, so you're comfortable sharing the story, which is why I'm going to prod even more. But I don't think that we met you for the first time, I don't know, it's been a year over here at Weathervane, but I don't think we got this part of the story. What's the timeline there? Was that like the day before? Was that like a week? Was it a month?
Within a month.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was playing college football. I had left in June to go back and train, and he died, I guess it would have been the end of May, and he died June 16th. Okay. So a couple weeks.
Were there feelings of like, if maybe I would have responded to this text message somehow, some way, things could have been different? Or was there not really any of that?
There were forms of that. I mean, there's a whole spectrum of experience in my experience of suicide, especially with a family member that close, of like this savior complex idea of, I could have done something differently. And the truth is, in some capacities, that is true. I think that's why we struggle with it so much. But for me, the real transformation and freedom that I allowed myself through that was, I am not responsible for anybody else's livelihood, period. And owning that has set me free of a lot of that, even if there was truth.
You used the word catapult, and I'm wondering if this experience is a thing that catapulted or like kick dropped you into doing internal work or like facing your internal environment.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I think death is the number one catapult for all people.
Elaborate. on your specific story?
My coach texted me when I was landing in Denver, and he said, hey, like we heard about what happened if, you need to take a week or a couple weeks or whatever. And I remember in that moment, part of like we're talking about digging inward and owning my own experience. I was like, you thought I was going to ask for that? Like, this is my life. I'm not going to ask you for the freedom to come back when my dad took his life. And there was something in that wasn't by any means like the full spectrum of my own work, but that represented a token of my own individuality and my own freedom that I was realizing through that. And then of course I would say the shadow side of death and reflection and triggers were all highlighted through my dad's suicide. But that was like, it was a huge nudge in my own work and in my own ownership and in my own agency. I think that's what the base of most work is having our own agency.
This is sort of the theme of what I want to talk about.
Hell yeah.
Because Ryan, first of all, we haven't spent a lot of time together, but I feel like we have known you for a really long time, which is the hallmark, I think, of some of the meaningful relationships that we have in our life. And so I get the sense that a lot of people feel this way when they meet you. And when I walk away from a conversation with you, I get the vibe that you are really committed to having a pulse on the interior environment. And what I mean by that is like you're interested in what's happening in your mind and in your emotions and in your body all the time. So like, what is that like? Have you always been that way? Because something that we have not talked a lot about on the show is our relationship to ourself. And you strike me as someone that has this like great curious relationship with you.
Yeah, I'm first off grateful that that's how you have experienced me, and I agree. My number one measurement of relationships is engagement to self, because I can't trust you more than you can trust you. I can't know you more than you know you. And so I think about that for myself. I think it's the same same experience. It's just happening subconsciously.
Yeah.
And by knowing myself, that's kind of what you were alluding to, is like, how curious are you? What spectrum have you experienced of yourself? And I think a lot of us are afraid of at least one side of ourself, so we mute the other side because of that. To answer your question of have I always been this way, I think for a long time I like wanted to say no, but the truth is I have been.
Okay.
And a lot of my childhood story has alluded to that. Like, I grew up really quickly, and we can get deeper into that, or I'm an open book on that. But I think because of how I came up and the independence that I was forced and invited into so young, that part of it was survival and part of it was like a fast forward button on self-development or personal identity or whatever we want to label that, like, whole puddle of life. Yeah.
I think there's two roads that we could take. One is how that has impacted the way that you engage with other people in the world. And one is like, what is the journey of being in touch with yourself on a daily basis look like? Because I think for a lot of people, it's just kind of a mystery. And they're like, oh, I have to go to a retreat to like unlock it, or oh, I have to read all of these books to unlock it. But I think that there might be small things that someone who's listening who has no idea how to be curious about themselves could do that perhaps are habits for you. I'm making a lot of assumptions, so you can also be like,
I mean, you're
Sam.
nailing a lot of things, so I'll tell you if you're wrong.
Okay, great.
Would you say that you're referring specifically to men?
No,
You're not.
not
You're
necessarily.
speaking about people in general.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay.
necessarily talking about men.
Okay.
So, for example, I am an incredibly type A person. I'm also very curious. I'm also like very, very on the extrovert scale. So my curiosity about my own self is small in comparison to my curiosity about other people. And my sense of emotion is very heady, which is like intellectualizing a lot of things and not like dropping into the actual thing itself. So sometimes for me, when I think about my relationship to myself, I mean, I almost just said I'm going to be 30, which is not true. Like I'm close.
It's true.
I've never uttered those words, but I'm like, I feel like I'm comfortable doing things alone for the first time in the last 18 months, which is super recent.
Mm-hmm.
So what are those small things that build the muscle and the curiosity? And I think on the other side of that is this courage to like take risks and do stuff and speak to strangers and travel to other countries. Like it unlocks other external things, but the initiation point is internal.
Yeah. The first one that comes to mind is meditation. I mean, I've been meditating for 10 years. I started when I was in college. I was a college football player, and I would go work out in the morning and then do a little bit of stretching after. And that just kind of like led into meditation. And I started because people said it was good for me. Like that was basically it.
Yeah.
And that practice, I actually just wrote something this morning that was like, you don't need another app. You don't need a playlist. You need to stop being a bitch and put your phone down and turn it off and just don't move. Like there's something to that I think a lot of us in the Western world specifically, it's not as tangible. Like it's not tangible in the moment. But if you just sit down with your phone off, eyes open, I don't even care if your eyes are closed, and just force yourself not to do anything else, how uncomfortable is that?
Right.
If that's uncomfortable, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, then like the process of doing that every single day is the work. And it can become a conversation with yourself that you are passive in at first, but then you become active in. You know, you're like, oh, I don't want to think those patterns, or why do I think those patterns? And then you start down the rabbit hole like we do YouTube, but with ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that as a cornerstone habit to some capacity is huge. I think in the last 5 years, 3 years, the biggest portions of my self-development and like individual identity and going inward, internal navigation is what I call it, has been cutting things. We don't need more.
Right.
We usually, the answer 90% of the time is less.
Right.
Yeah. So those are some things that have helped me. Movement, like all those, the basic things that anyone will tell you are good for you is probably true.
Right.
Whether or not you do them is the thing.
Right.
Go get sunlight. Move your meat sack.
Yeah.
Don't eat shit. Like it's so simple.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about discipline, right? So like, what is the thing that when you don't want to do it, you're like, ooh,
Self-love.
okay, let's talk more about that.
Yeah. I think that's usually the base of it. Wrapped in some type of fear. Another belief that I have is that the base of all fears is fear of death. Like we could talk about fear of abandonment. We could talk about fear of judgment. All those things at the base, if you ask why enough, become fear of death. So I think once we grapple with that one, I don't know if we ever like solve or deal with that because we're physiologically hardwired to fear it. But if we can grapple with that, I think we can find a lot of peace.
Okay, what does that look like? What, like, are you thinking about your death all the time?
I wouldn't say all the time, but I've definitely went there.
Okay.
For me, it's looked like seeing it in other people. So I think a huge part of the internal journey is dancing with our shadows, right? So we have like our shadows and our lights, and the shadow often for me has come through things that scare me. I think that's like always the route. And to lose family members or somebody close to us, I think is the invitation for most of us, and a huge what I'm picturing is in Mario Kart where you hit like the fast forward things.
Oh yeah.
On this journey, because we're like, oh shit, I'm not immortal, which I
Right.
don't think we think consciously, but to some point for the majority of us through our teens, 20s, even into 30s, if we've never faced it, it kind of feels like that, because what else do we know?
Right.
Right. So for me, as far as does that look like, that's been a huge part for me. Relationships. My dad killed himself when I was 20, like dealing and grappling with death at a younger age forced me inward.
Right.
In a lot of ways. Psychedelics have been a huge part of that journey, and I don't know how much we want to get into that on here. And living my own death, there's no one that can convince me that I haven't lived twice because of one specific experience that was like far more terrifying than even the phone call that I got when my uncle called me about my dad dying. That's been a huge portion. And then other like integrative practices like men's groups and circles and the retreats like you're mentioning, and these environments that offer vulnerability or offer a space to share the parts of us that we don't want to share, even with ourselves, especially with older people, because they know.
Yeah, talk to me about like conversations with older people, because that's something that we just privately, like you and I talk about, is this idea of intergenerational friendship. But that's not something we see super often. And because our culture is changing so quickly, especially with technology, because older generations aren't as attuned to it, we sort of think, oh, they don't know,
For sure.
which is not true.
So not true. Yeah. Yeah. AI isn't an older human. It just knows logic.
Right.
Right? Like it's fucking brilliant, but it doesn't have lived experience, technically. And this is actually hitting on the head of something really alive and present in my current life is mentorship. I just went for a walk 2 days ago with someone that I asked basically to be a mentor. And I was like, I don't really know how to do this. I told them on the walk, I was like, I don't know what this looks like mostly. I mean, both of my parents, for the most part, weren't people that I looked up to like ask information like that and grow intentionally. Not that they didn't have gifts for me, but I didn't cultivate those relationships. College football coaches and coaches in general might have been the closest thing for me, but it wasn't like a one-to-one reach out. Hey, can I learn from you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One experience comes to mind. Actually, a girlfriend of mine broke up. It was super gnarly. There was a guy that we were both working for at the time who opened this gym, and he had been seeing it pretty intimately. We were there a lot. We separated. I stayed at the gym. She left. There was one experience where after, I don't know, a month and a half of being separated, we were going to have a conversation. And I was like, I'm kind of nervous for this. And I said, hey, man, he was probably 10 or 15 years older, like very warrior energy, was a fighter, but I could tell he had done his work, like his internal work. And I was like, hey, can we have an intimate conversation? And I just want to share with you as if you're her. And he was like, yeah. So we sit down in this peptide office on the ground, cross-legged, just like this, lights off. And I was like, fuck, this is so hard. And I was like, can we hold hands? He has like these big, beefy hands.
And why? Why did you want to hold hands with him?
Because it was how I was going to share it with her. And I wanted to live the experience first so I could like move all of the emotions and the like insecurities out of my own body now. So I felt more grounded in the conversation. So we did that. And the second he held my hands, especially an older man, I was like, I got to sit with this for a second because this is really uncomfortable. And then we did the whole thing, and it really, I mean, was a pillar for me of a moment of asking for help, especially from older masculine archetypes in my life. Men's groups have also been huge for me. I sat in a group for, I think it was about 2 years in the basement of this church with guys in their 50s going through midlife crises, like having challenges with infidelity in their marriage and all sorts of things. And I remember admitting one time, I feel like I'm in an AA circle and I don't, like, I'm better than this, basically, was what I shared in the circle. And it was probably I don't know, it was one of the first 5 meetings that I went to. And the guys were like, And I was like, that didn't trigger anybody. Huh. Maybe this is good for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you think about what Ryan is saying about death, because you sort of think about and talk about and are scared of death. I don't think about death at all.
It's become so front and center for me that my like mountaintop mission in life is to help people die alive. Is to get to those last 10 breaths in liberation. Like the vision I have is arms wide open, just a shit-eating grin on people's faces. And the feeling of like I did it.
Yeah.
I lived the life that was true to me. And I'm not begging my creator of the universe for more time because there are 2 agreements. You get to live and you get to die. Everything in between there is choice, in my opinion, to some extent.
Yeah.
And did you continue to choose what was true for you, or did you hide?
I guess in my stubbornness and my, like, a weird word to use, sin, I'm like, well, I didn't agree to that. I didn't agree to be born and to die. And so I have I often actually ask people, if you could live forever, would you? So I guess I'll ask you real quick, if you could live forever, would you?
That's juicy.
My answer would be, I think I do.
Okay, so this is this exact
And this is a separation between the individual and the collective.
Sure, yeah, this is exactly how I feel because I do worry about dying. I do worry often, and I try to think about where it came from. I don't know as much as I think about it. I do think about it quite often. Maybe not. And it's interesting. I realize in the winter I'm more depressed and I'm more prone to thinking that way. But this winter I'm not, which to me is a great sign.
Because it's still 75
maybe,
degrees.
maybe,
Or maybe it's because
Maybe.
there's a sauna.
or maybe I'm growing as an individual and I'm
Oh, let's go with that one.
I'm becoming more at
C is the
peace
answer.
with
Yeah.
with dying. But I think that there's just so many things that I want to do, and there's so many lives that I always think about living, and so I always get caught up not living this one, right? Because I'm always thinking about like a future or an alternate universe that doesn't exist that I wish I could be a part of, and so that's why my answer is I would love to live forever because why wouldn't I? Because it's all that I know, and I don't know what happens when we die. A lot of people would like to convince you that they do know, and I don't, and I would love, this is so corny, but I would love to love you forever. And I would hate to not be able to do that.
The audience is going to love that.
And it's true though. It's true. And there's so many other things I would like to do too, in addition to loving you forever.
You.
But I don't even know where I'm going with this, but yeah, I think about,
More about how much you love me.
I think about death often, but I'm less scared of it now. And I would like to die with a shit-eating grin because it's always like you're on your deathbed. The saying is always like you're on your deathbed and you wish that you spent more time with the ones that you love. And I feel like I'm doing that pretty well. So I don't think that I'll have that regret. But I think I will have the regret for sure that I wasted so much of my time, fucking off on my phone and not being in the present moment. And so I think when I hear you talking, I think that what I'm realizing, you're talking about meditation, you just seem like you're more at peace with yourself. And I think it's because you have, more than most people, you've mastered the art of being in the present moment. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. Do you feel that way?
I think I practice it.
I think, okay, yeah, obviously mastering the moment of mastering the present moment is impossible to do, but at least more so than me. You're saying less is more, so you've cut things out of your life. And I've noticed that about you, that you live very minimalistic, and it does seem like you stay in the moment, which I think is a way to overcome the fear of death, but also live a life that when you do get to the end, you'll naturally die with a shady grin because you've lived in the present moment, because you haven't wasted so much time thinking and theorizing about the past and about the future, but you're just here right now. And that's sort of that's sort of what I get from you when I speak to you. Like I can tell that you spend time meditating. I can see it on your face. I can see it, through your energy. And that's something that I really admire about you. So
I appreciate that. Yeah. One thing I would say continue to, as a desire, is mastering the self.
Mm-hmm.
And to that point of your question and my answer of, I think I live forever, I think I also die. And to me, that's the definition of dynamic. And I think that's what breaks the human psyche, is I judge both are true. I judge that we're all one at the same exact time, but I'm an individual, and both are true. It's not an or statement. Like I find a lot in the spiritual community, it's like, we're all one. And in the material world, they're like, you're an individual.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, both are true at the exact same time. And on the side of mastering the self, as to what you were just talking about within, some people will tell you that they know of the after. And my belief is similar to what I'm hearing you say, is that anybody that tells me they know what happens after this, I think is either far ahead of me spiritually or a fucking liar.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like one or the other. Like I'm wrong or I don't trust them.
I agree with that.
And so using that logic, a lot of what I desire is to master the self. Like who is Ryan and who does Ryan want to be? And what are the goals that I have? And how do I enjoy the suffering of the growth of the process to get those things? Because they're clear to me. And I think through knowing where I'm going and the pain that I'm going to endure to some extent helps me suffer less. Because I'm like, oh, then I can enjoy this process.
Yeah.
Even if it's hard.
We just talked about this idea of meandering and finding joy in the journey of things, which I was sort of putting in the box of hobbies. Find hobbies that you're bad at, but that you like to do. Like you can be terrible at something and enjoy it, and those things can happen at the same time and be totally true, which is a bit of this idea of being present. So I'm curious about the love of the journey. You are saying maybe that a huge fear that we all have is dying. I think that one of our biggest fears is regret. So how do you face this idea of being in the moment, falling in love with the journey? And how does that combat any future moment where you look back on your life and you're like, oh, here are the things that I regret. So that doesn't happen. Instead, you say, I did it. I did live a life that was honest to me.
Well, let's pull regret for a second.
Mm-hmm.
What would create regret? Or why would you fear regret?
Not living your true self, not doing the things that you told yourself you would do, that you wanted to do, that you were capable of doing. At least that in my experience, that's what I'm thinking. Like, oh, I regret not doing the thing that I told myself that I would do, or that I knew that I was capable of doing, but didn't do because I was afraid of, who knows?
Failure,
Yeah,
judgment,
sure. Yeah.
insert. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I think that's the important part, right? If we define regret as I didn't do something that I wish I would have done because of I was afraid of judgment, what other people's opinions are, etc. To me, that would be the cornerstone of that whole question. So come back to what you wanted to ask me.
Okay, so I'm asking you, when you reach this moment of looking back on your life,
Sure.
many people are like, oh, the thing that I regret in that, or the thing that I'm most scared of in that moment is regret. How does that tie into the way that you commit to the journey? Because you're also saying there's a steadfastness in just surrendering to the fact that things are going to be hard. There's going to be challenges. Like, things might not always go my way. And I know that. And because I know that, I can just enjoy the moment and enjoy the journey. Like, how do you enjoy the journey?
Yeah, and not that they won't always, but they definitely won't go your way.
Yeah.
To me, the thing that comes up is I'd say I'm etching out 4 core values for myself. There's gratitude, there's curiosity, there's playfulness, and there's tenacity. And those 4 things really help me combat what I believe would be a deathbed of regret. Because if I'm continue to be curious instead of judgmental, then I'll follow the curiosity. I think judgment is one of the biggest stunters of growth, the biggest stunters of why we get to a place of regret. Because usually we're judging other people for what we're really judging about ourselves. So it keeps us from doing whatever the thing is that we actually want to do.
Yes.
Gratitude really helps me looking backwards and looking forward to the life that I want to have in a grateful way. I would say it's probably 70-30. I look backwards and it changes my perspective, which I think will help me on my deathbed to see the life that I had through a different lens, even if it's the same exact life.
Is this nostalgia, or what does looking back look like to you?
Is it just like an acknowledgement essentially of the life that you've lived, right?
Or like what's the manifestation of it? Is it you look at photos, you watch old YouTube videos?
I think if we're looking at, like, if we're taking the moment you were talking about, which I started us on, the last few moments of life, I don't know what it looks like.
Yeah.
Maybe it looks like a film strip. Maybe it looks like a tape. Maybe it's a feeling. Maybe it's not visual. I don't know. But I know that after practicing gratitude for 70 years, it will be implanted in my body, you know? At least that's my belief.
Okay, so in your current day self,
Yeah,
this is a gratitude practice.
Yeah, it's a practice. Actually, it's one that I got from a mentor of mine, using these malas and going through and saying something that I'm grateful for each bead. So you go through. And
how often do you do that?
At least every 48 hours. I have sacred minimums, which is what I call them. So things that I don't go 2 days without doing. And the gratitude mala is one of them. And you get to about 54 and you're like, oh, this is fucking work now.
How many beads are there?
108.
Wow.
Ooh. Yeah. And something that really resonated when he shared this practice at a retreat where we met, he was like, yeah, the 3 bullets on my journal is cute. And I was like, yeah. It doesn't I don't feel that, you know? It's so easy to skip and to just be like, cool, like I'm grateful for my shoes and I'm grateful for the dog or whatever. But when you count 108 and at 54, you're like, oh, I have to earn the rest of these. That's where I think the pattern actually starts to be interrupted. And you can do things somatically to create that, like your breathing and what you're, visualizing as you say them, etc. There are different things that you can bring online to amplify the gratitude. That's really helpful. So curiosity, gratitude, playfulness, which I would say through this current season of life is one of the most challenging, is like a memory, especially in this building phase and, building a financial foundation, etc., etc. I can busy myself still, but that one is really important. And tenacity, which to me is like, let's fucking get after it. Because why would I want to live a life where I'm doing anything else? Even if I fuck around and find out things aren't for me. At least I found out.
Right.
Tenacity. I feel like when you're saying get after it, I feel like there would be critics that would say, oh, that's such a capitalist mindset.
For sure.
And what do you say to that? That's
I think all
yeah.
of that is an individual choice.
Yeah.
And I also, like, I see both sides of the fence here, especially from traveling. To say we work too hard and we're not taking enough time for rest is fair. It's also fair to say, can you imagine being somebody from India who learned English as their sixth language and had to get a visa over here to work and to even make $50,000 a year? They would have to outwork the average American probably fivefold. Are you going to tell them that
Right.
they're working too hard?
Right.
Probably not.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it all depends on what your goals are. And that's where I've continued to come back to. If we're talking about distillation and coming back to filtering out life and the noise,
Yeah.
that is, I don't think I've been in the process for 10 years, but I don't think I understood how important it really is to get at the base of what I want in this life.
Yes.
And being able to, one, visualize it and write it down and clarify it and be like, nothing else matters.
Yeah, let's talk about this filtration process, because it sounds like what you're saying is the lens or like the funnel with which you do this filtering of advice that's good for me. Like, I could give you advice that works really well for me, but it doesn't work for you. So filtering what works for me, what is noise, what are the essentials that I do really need, and what are the things that are like great things that people recommend online and don't work for me. Is that filter these values that you just told us about? Or how do you make the decision, keep, discard?
Yeah. The values are a huge part. Another thing that comes immediately to mind is, do they have the thing that I want? Are they the person that I want to be? Is there a combination of those two things that are true for what I'm listening to them about?
Yeah.
I just wrote a post today actually for men who have dads that they're having this complex emotion with, that said something like, stop asking your dad how to be a good man if you don't respect him. You can love him, but you don't have to try to be like him. And there's a difference. I think it's very similar as we're navigating the world. Like, if you gave me advice, the first filtration that I would apply to it is, does the advice apply to something that you have in your life that I want?
Right.
And I think this, especially as someone who's stepping in the last year, stepping more and more into life coaching and identity work, that I have to learn to own. Because people who come work with me are going to want something, whether it's something that I have as an external in my life or an internal of who I carry myself to be.
I've never thought about it that way, or at least I don't think I've spent time thinking about it that way. And
I'm
thinking about specific friendships over the years where I'm grappling with, like, why is it that I have resistance to this advice that they're offering? Am I jealous? Is it insecurity? And I think that's what it is. It's like, oh, you're criticizing my marketing for my wedding photography, or you're telling me I could be doing this better. But it's like, but do you have the thing that I want? Are you also struggling in the same way that I am? And if so, why should I take your advice?
For sure.
And that always felt like such a wrong thing for me to feel. And I feel like now in the moment, I couldn't really describe what it is that you're saying right now, which is like, oh, that is what it is. And that's what I feel. And you're sort of putting character and identity to something that I haven't been able to describe to myself. That's such a good metric to use for friendships and relationships. It's like, I'm thinking about like relationships in my life that haven't worked out or that aren't working out or whatever. And it's like, that is the answer. There needs to be a shared value there. And if you don't have anything that I want to possess, why would I listen to what you have to say?
Yeah. And something in the mainstream that I partially disagree with is, if I'm taking advice from you, that I want everything that you have. Like, maybe you have an incredible 7-figure business where you lead it with strength and courage and integrity, but you're cheating on your wife. Okay, I'll ask you about the business.
Sure.
Like, I don't need the whole lifestyle, and that's my responsibility to, again, be able to filter out what I feel like is true and what is not.
There is an analogy for what you guys are talking about, which is compare the fruit. So if I ask you about, I'm cultivating this apple orchard and I really need help growing it and cultivating it and making it thrive, and you have this really amazing vineyard and you give me all this advice, we'll compare the fruit. It's not the same fruit, so that advice might work really well for you, and it's not the same fruit that I'm growing. I think that's fascinating. I want to talk more, Elliot, what you're sort of like starting to get at, and Ryan, you keep touching on it, is this idea of, okay, we have this security or confidence or peace inside, and so we can now come forward and be a person in the world interacting with other people. And I can filter these things and it's not personal. Like, I'm not like, oh, Ryan's a terrible person, so I'm not going to take his advice. I'm like, oh, okay, here's what works well for me because I'm thinking about my own environment. So I want to share this with both of you. There's this thing called the 1980 Dartmouth Scar Experiment. And it's a psychology professor who had a bunch of students come together and he put prosthetic scars on their face, showed them a mirror of what this might look like, did a couple of touch-ups, and then sent them to speak to some strangers. When they came back, they reported a bit about their experience. Much of it was that they felt uncomfortable, that they felt judged, that they felt like the content or the vibe of the person they were speaking to was negative.
During the touch-up, they removed the scars.
But during the touch-up, they said, we're just going to make a couple of changes. They actually fully removed the scar. So it had nothing to do with the actual external presentation of these participants, but it was about their internal perception of how they were showing up or how they were thinking about themselves in this moment. This is the whole concept of being in touch with your inner self or being confident on the inside. Is it now is starting to affect the way that we're in relationship with other people. So talk to me about how this has changed or shifted or what the journey of you have this practice, you have these rituals that you're committed to doing, and now you are out in the world meeting people. What is that like?
The thing that keeps rippling in my mind is how important the belief is that you're getting at.
Yeah.
And I would say how it's changed for me is where do people go in my life? And this has been a confronting way of relating with the outside world. Is like somebody could be friends with me for 2 years and then I start to change my own beliefs about myself, which change the conversations I want to have, which then changes the relationships that I have. A more tangible experience of this is like victim-esque conversations I just see myself out of. Unless there's something that I can add value to that person and I'm like stuck there for time or environment's sake, I will find myself out of those spaces because I've done so much work in myself to not believe that about myself. Partially it was triggering for a while, which I think is a sign for a lot of us. And then there becomes a point where it's not as triggering, it's just not feeding, right? There's a separation. And so I feel like I've put up a new antenna for the social environments that I put myself in. And because we have this like 100 people circle that's even possible for most human beings because of the way that we used to live in tribes and the way that we connect, that just means people find their ways out and I find new people within that 100.
Right.
And I try to do my best to do that in a way that feels good for everybody. I'm definitely not always perfect. I can be blunt, but having conversations with people to keep them in my life or to keep some kind of positive connection has been its own journey within that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good example, like talking about this 100, like the way that it's sort of amorphous and changes based on the way that your belief changes is the concept that the beliefs that you have shape the reality. And so if you believe that you're really hot and sexy and charismatic and awesome to be around, more people might have fun in your presence versus if you feel like, oh, you're so awkward and you just bother everyone that you talk to and like you're so ugly. If you show up like that, and that's the vibe that you're giving off, then people won't be as excited to be in your presence. And so that relationship with how you think about and perceive yourself directly impacts the way that people perceive you.
And even worse, that the people looking for that type of person are going to be people that continue the downward spiral, right? Like they'll either be saviors or they'll be people who want to resonate with them.
What do you think about that?
It's complicated. I almost want to say I don't agree entirely.
Yeah, challenge me. Let's go there.
I feel like I'm a great actor because I feel like I think those things about myself quite often.
Yes.
Not as often as I used to, but I still do think about those things quite often. And I happen to believe that I think most people that meet me think I'm at least nice and fun to be around, you know? And so I feel like I'm very capable of inwardly thinking a plethora of many negative things and also showing up and masking that completely. So
Are there times, though, that you prevent yourself from showing up or going to a thing or agreeing to do a thing? Because even though you have that relationship established, you're not feeling like whatever, like name the insecurity or name the interior thoughts that you might be having. And so you're not going to a thing and therefore regretting it. Because the flip side of that is every time that we do go to a thing, or you or we, I don't ever regret showing up in a social situation.
Yeah.
Where I know the people.
And that's, no, I agree with that too. I mean, I'm even thinking about that today already, about going to this
happy hour.
We're going to like a happy hour after this, and I'm just like, what am I going to talk about? Like, what do I have to share? Oh, like, what do you do? Oh, I work at a coffee shop. It's like, why is there shame? Like, why is there shame? Like you're, you know, like you have a great life. You have people in your life that you love. Like you love coffee. You have a podcast. Like why is there this thought that it's like, oh, I have no idea what to talk about, which is never true. And then exactly when we go, we end up having a great time. So I'm trying to understand why that seems to be a recurring theme and how do I break that cycle? If that answers the question. But I see what you're saying, and I do agree with that for the most part. I feel like there's people in my life, past and present, that I'm like, you could show up in a different way. Like you could, you could absolutely show up in a different way. And what's holding you back is the perception of self. And I think maybe there's some projection there too, but it's also just conversations that I've had, with in the past. And so I think there's a lot of truth to that, and it just shows you how powerful the mind is, and specifically like negative self-talk.
You're also talking about decisiveness, which you talked about at the beginning, Ryan. Like, I have a choice to show up in a particular way or to react to a particular situation, which is antithetical to this victim mindset that you also brought up. Like, talk to me about decisiveness. How do you decide, okay, even if I'm not feeling my best, I am going to show up this way, or okay, this situation is not cool. I could react badly, or I could be a little bit more in control of my emotions and my response.
I think the biggest gift a human being can give themselves is closing the gap between our self-concept and our lived reality. To come back to that, I feel like I can't go further without even not answering that, but giving my opinion on that. I think that is where peace is found consistently. Is like, can I close what I believe about myself with the life that I'm living? And that is the biggest cornerstone of work. And I think that leads to part of my answer to finding the decisiveness and how do I make the choice is either I change my self-concept or I change my life. And this is the this is the studio. This is the messy art studio. This is the playground. This is the sandbox, because both those things are dynamic moving targets. And we receive lived experience through our senses. That's one way. We receive it through our logical minds. That's another way. And then we receive it through like a spiritual-esque orientation. And however you define that is up to you. But I would say those three inputs are how I filter and distill what my truth is. It's like a combination. And by our senses, I mean, this includes body work. This includes fitness. This includes listening to my stomach. This includes feeding myself well so my physiology is balanced. Like all those things play a part in that. And then spiritually, you could include meditation, prayer, whatever those practices look like, where we have some pattern of reception or a pattern of listening. And then through the mind, what makes sense? I have this, it actually came to me probably 5 years ago, but I was like, how am I filtering my decisions?
Yeah.
And I started writing, and I wrote down listen, think, feel, say, do. And those words all drop a letter, which forms a perfect upside down pyramid or a funnel. And I was like, holy shit. And then to me, I think the only way that I change what I hear, what I'm listening to, is by changing what I do. And this is how we evolve as humans.
Right.
You start to do something differently, and then you hear a different voice. Which is how the person you were just talking to about earlier around feeling like, oh, I take from the room, or I'm sad, or whatever the beliefs are. You have to start doing something differently. In the process of doing something different, you'll feel cognitive dissonance because the story that you know about yourself is different than who you're being. And that's part of the growth challenged. Like just like muscles tear to grow, that's how this will feel until it doesn't.
Right.
And then you'll be hearing different thoughts in that person. If they're working on being optimistic or seeing the world in a new light, it will feel like work, and they will be doing it mentally until their body learns the patterns, and then their identity changes.
Do you think that this cognitive dissonance can feel like pretend? Like I'm just showing up and pretending?
It does feel like pretend.
We've talked about, even if you're not feeling it, even if you're not feeling like, okay, I, am the most charismatic person in the room. What if you just pretended that you were and see what happens?
It's easier said than done, but yeah, I mean, sometimes
Sure.
it is. Sometimes it is that simple. Sometimes it really is that simple.
I think it's that simple if you allow it to be that simple.
Right.
Two questions I've been asking myself a lot lately are what if, and what would my highest self do right now? Or what would my highest self think right now? Which changes my thought patterns, which changes my outcome. And I wouldn't say that like is the solution, but in the moment, it's like eating broccoli instead of sugar.
Yeah. What does this look like when you meet new people? Like when you're making decisions about which relationships to deepen and which relationships are okay to let go of. Whether it's like the water is already flowing in that direction, or you have to consciously say, okay, my time is better spent and it's more fulfilled if I dedicate it over here.
I just finished Naval Ravikant's Almanac, and something he said in there is that you do something long enough and then it becomes taste. Like you think of Rick Rubin and he has a taste in music. And I think that this, if I had a few tastes in my life, that this would be something that I have gotten to that point, because most of it's not cognitive at this point. Like I sit down with somebody and most of it is a felt judgment. But I would say most of that still comes back to engagement to self and how I would define that. Yeah. Like, is this somebody who I can trust? Do they trust themselves? Is this somebody who speaks about life and has a similar perspective to what I at least want to be around? It doesn't need to be the same. And I would say I don't want to create an echo chamber. But do they have some subset of like positive outlook, creative exploration, etc., that I'm excited to be around? And for what? I think all relationships are transactional to some extent.
Sure. What does it look like for you to stay deepening these external relationships? And we can use romantic relationships as an example too, because I know you share a lot of that kind of content, which is awesome.
Yeah, something I've been playing with lately is how silo we create relationships, right? Like you have friends and you have partner and then you have coworkers or whatever. And what does it look like if there aren't silos? Like there are some clients that I've signed recently that were friends that have been in the men's group. That's like a totally new landscape of relationship for me. And I would say as far as continuing to deepen them or what they look like is a lot of trust. Knowing myself. And what I mean by that is that I'm not somebody who's going to text you on an ongoing basis. That's just not how I relate. And I have to trust that the people around me will be okay with that. And if they won't, that they will do what's best for them. And being honest about the transactions at play. I think that's a big one too.
I'm hearing you say a lot when you meet someone new, the concept of trust is really high on your like filtration or on your like non-negotiable list.
Yeah.
And this also translates to the idea that I trust that the other person will take care of themselves and do what's best for them.
I think that's so underrated in how we relate.
Which also relieves you of the burden
For sure.
of like, oh, I didn't text them back. I hope that they don't think that I'm this way and that they're going to do this and that we go, like the rabbit hole just goes like down and down and down.
Wait.
And that on its own is really underrated. Like give your friends or the people in your life the trust that they will operate as their own autonomous person and do what's best for them. And that if you don't text them back and they're upset, they'll call you or they'll let you know instead of shouldering the burden of what may or may not be true. I also don't text. I have like 70 unread text messages.
So is it that you have a belief in yourself that when you show up in physical form that you hope or you believe that you showed your true nature, which is that you're a good person, that the person will this new friend or this existing friend will understand that the reason that you're not texting them is because that's just not who you are, and that you'll see them eventually, and that you'll have a conversation with them eventually, and you just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm basically like, I've also started doing this thing where I meet new people and I exchange numbers. Like, if you text me, I won't text you back. Like, just straight up. That's a thing. If you want to hang out, like, please just send me like dates and times. And like, I would love to hang out in person, but I'm not catching up and building meaningful conversation or connection by texting. And so I'm not doing it. And I'm relieving myself of the burden of the notifications and of responding. And so I also trust myself that when I show up to hang out, to get a coffee, to whatever, that I'm giving that person my full attention and we can have this like meaningful and rich and really nice time.
Okay.
I would recommend it.
I have 2 phones.
Mm-hmm.
One that is filming right now that has no connection to the outside world, no Instagram, no texting, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And my other phone, my Coke phone, has all of that. And I'm doing all this without a phone number. I no longer have a cell phone number from traveling to Asia and coming back. And it is one of the most freeing things I've ever experienced.
Right.
I mean, the digital landscape and the way that we have been conditioned through that evolution of responding and staying connected to me is insane.
Yeah.
And the pressure that we put on ourselves through that is crazy.
That part.
It's crazy.
It's about the containers, I think. Like, the thing that I see you doing, Ryan, is, okay, I want to live my life in a particular way. And so I'm making choices about the things that are in my life that prevent me from doing that thing that I want to do or from crafting this life that I want. Like, phone is a great example. I don't have a phone number right now. Like, I don't know anybody that doesn't have a phone number.
I don't either.
Yeah, neither does any of the customer support that I talk to.
Right.
I think there are big domino things that we can do for ourselves if we're circling this back around to habits that create who we are.
Yes.
The big domino things are the things to focus on, not all the little domino shit that we like pile on our plate that doesn't really make a difference. Yeah, put a sauna in your house. And then I bet you meditate.
Right.
Exactly.
Turn your phone number off. I bet you find some other creative solutions. Like, there are big domino things if we start creatively thinking that really change. And to use the title of the show, you know, what is the most human thing possible? Change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bars.
Bars. Man.
Bars.